What is up, everybody? I know it's been a while, been a long time actually. I just realized that we probably haven't, or I haven't put out a show in a couple weeks after 3 consecutive weeks. And then we were off 2 weeks, so everybody's probably like, hey man, what's your deal? And to be honest, I've had the time, I just haven't. I've been distracted with other things and haven't put a lot of time and effort into the show. And I think part of the problem is I come up sometimes with really good ideas on the fly, and then I distract myself with other things and sort of putting out content, which I'll try to get better at. I'd like to tell you I promise I'll get better at that, but it's probably not true. It's a funny thing when you put out material that people really seem to enjoy, and then the pressure to keep that going, even without sponsors and stuff. Like, I'm not putting out content for specific people that say, hey, you have to have a new show out by this date, which hopefully prevents me from putting out crap content just for the sake of putting it out. And hopefully if I do it when I'm called to do it, or when something interesting happens, the quality of that content is better versus me just making some shit up one week just to talk about it. But it's a hobby, and I don't know what else to do. There's some things that I could do better for sure. And I think in the coming months, I would like to say I'm going to, buckle down and try to explore some of those options. One of those being YouTube. Apparently YouTube's a big thing, like podcasts that have video apparently do better than podcasts that don't, which absolutely blows my mind, because one thing I probably won't do is just sit around and watch people talk. But I like to listen as I'm driving to work and as I'm warming up for workouts, or I even have it on the TV, like if I'm doing stuff in the house. But to actually sit down and watch a couple people visit about something, it's got to be a real special podcast with a lot of visual effects, like some EMS education or something like that. But you never know. I'm going to have some time coming up in June. I've got the upcoming hip replacement surgery. So I would like to think that that's going to force me to put some more time and effort into the show. I don't know that to be true. I have the time now to put into the show, and I'm just not doing it. No excuses. People are real good about telling me what I can't do after surgery, but I'm going to probably be real good about showing them what I can do. And sitting around probably ain't going to be one of those things. We're probably going to get right after it shortly after the surgery. What else is going on? The other thing about the show is so Dustin and I are going to get together, I think, in the next, Dustin Dickout and I are going to get together in the next week or two and put out a show for June, which is going to be Men's Mental Health Awareness Month, which should be a good show. It's been a year since him and I sat down and visited, and he shared some very candid things about his mental health, and I think we're going to sit down and talk about our own. I did a 10-month thing where I went and had my own mental health awareness or mental health expert. I sat down and did some things and uncovered some stuff, I think, that was interesting to me. I think the big picture still eludes me as far as, am I the way I am because of my job, or do I do the job because I am the way that I am? And I don't know that. It's kind of like the chicken or the egg thing, I suppose. I don't know that I'll ever find the answer to that. But I had a real cool 10 months. Once a month I met with a gal, and we had some really good conversation, and we uncovered some things that were beneficial in how I interpret information and how I process information, and then how I go about reacting to that information. So I think having a couple dudes sit down and talk about where they're at in their own thought process and our careers and how they've kind of taken different paths and where we're at now, and just admitting that I think we're doing a good job when it comes to being in our profession for a long time with not a lot of issue. And by that, I mean like big picture issues. I think we're doing a good job. Everybody's story is different. But I think acknowledging all the good and all the bad when it comes to that, I think is important. So we'll get it all out there and we'll talk about it. That'll be a good show, I think. But outside of that, I don't have any leads on guests. I get a lot of junk email to my show podcast or my podcast email with people offering me guests, but all that costs money. And they're people you've never heard of. So I really try to keep it. And since my remote episode with Hannah was a giant debacle, I'm a little standoffish when it comes to inviting guests online, but you never know. But if you have a topic you want me to talk about, or you got any leads on people that I should talk about, I'm interested. Send me emails, messages, text messages, whatever you got to do. One of the people I really want to talk to is BVL, and for not because he's interesting, but because he has an interesting job. He is now the head honcho of EMS in Iowa, like the head guy. Like if there was a secretary of EMS, that's what he is to us in Iowa. And it's a big deal. So congratulations, BVL. That's been in the last couple months. And he's well-deserved. Like he is very intelligent when it comes to EMS issues in Iowa and globally or nationally. And he's got some really good ideas and he's a smart guy. Pretty boring when it comes to conversation, but I think it would be interesting to sit down with him and just kind of talk about some of the legislative hurdles we face in Iowa and EMS. What's on the horizon, how we can fix it, your job or our job as advocates for our profession, what we can do at the state level and who we can contact with issues and how we can raise money and get grants. And I think that would be a great informative episode. So I'll reach out to him and see if he can get together sometime. He's got a pretty easy job, I think, with a lot of free time. So I'll see what he's got going on. I haven't had a book to read in about 2 months. So if anybody's got any book recommendations, I'd love to have them. It's turkey season. Right now, this episode will come out the day after turkey season closes. So I have put all my other hobbies on hold so I don't get up in the morning and read. My fitness has kind of suffered a little bit because of that. And again, I have time to do both those things. I'm just trading that time for trying to kill a turkey, which I did a couple weeks ago. But then I went and bought another tag because why not punish myself even more? Should have just ended on a good one. But I got one day left, and that's Friday the 16th, and then the 17th and 18th, which is the final weekend. I'm booked up with other things, so I'm not going to be able to go. So tomorrow's it. We'll see what I can do. I had a lot of fun. It's my favorite time of year. Gladly trade reading a book and getting a workout in for getting up at 3:30 in the morning and hitting the road and listening to turkeys gobble and watch turkeys do turkey stuff. So if you got any book suggestions, I'm in. There was a book I was going to get in June. Jack Carr, who's an author that I've enjoyed reading. Malcolm really enjoyed him too. Malcolm actually met him in person. He had a new book that was going to come out in June. It's now pushed back to October. So again, after hip surgery, I'll have a little time to get caught up on reading. All the books that I want to read, my library doesn't have, and I'm not interested in buying a bunch of books and having them on my shelf, even though I think I'm probably going to have to. There are books that I do buy, but I just haven't yet. So public library books, if you got any idea on public library books that you think I'd be interested in, same thing with the guest and the idea thing, just shoot me a text or email and I'll be happy to read them. Not having read a book in a couple months is really starting to bother me. So I think I've hit all the updates. We're now north of 50 episodes. So I feel like I need to say thank you again for everybody that listens to me talk a bunch of crap about stuff. And I will always believe that the greatest gift you can give somebody is your time. And if you guys are out there listening on your way to work, you could be listening to so many other things. And if you're listening to me, I really do. Like it's cool. It's been a fun little project. It's cool. I like it. I don't, in order to keep the creative juices flowing, I just haven't invested that kind of time. There's a lot of things I've fallen short of already this year. I've had lofty goals and I just need to get back on track. I'm easily distracted with other things, and that's on me. I hate the bullshit excuses of I don't have time. I have the time. I'm just choosing not to use. I'm choosing to do other things with my time, and everything's a trade-off. So can I get it all done in one day? Absolutely. Am I choosing to? Nope. And that's just me. Let's move on. Appreciation weeks in May. Man, we just got done with Nurses Week again. I think there's one of those a month. Teacher Appreciation Week, I think, was mixed in there too, maybe the same week. It's Police Week coming up. That is now, actually. So when this episode airs on the 18th, we would have been through Police Week. We totally glossed over Dispatcher Week, which was in April 13th through the 19th, and totally on me for missing that. And I got to tell you, this is just my personal opinion, and I believe it wholeheartedly. If we need an appreciation week to feel good about what we do, or for other people to try to make us feel good about what we do, we're not getting paid enough. You know what makes me feel appreciated? Money, right? Gas in my truck, eggs in my refrigerator. Those things make me feel appreciated and valued. Not to say that accolades aren't good. I do appreciate some accolades every now and then, but when your department or your city or your state shows up with a garbage bag full of popcorn and says, hey, man, we can't appreciate you enough. You guys are great. They're not paying you enough. And I'll die on that hill. It is what it is. I said what I said. If there's a electrical engineer appreciation week, I'd love to see it. Now, we also chose professions that historically don't pay great. We are getting better. I know a lot of services out there right now who are hiring for a lot of money, and it's well-deserved. Don't get me wrong. It's well-deserved. Every person that gets on an ambulance or a fire truck or in a cop car or sits behind a headset taking phone calls all day deserves a lot of money. You really do. And how weird is it to be a police officer right now? Like, defund the police. But wait, we appreciate you during this week in May. Like, come on. It's tough out there, I ain't gonna lie to you, especially for, I think, police officers, most importantly. People don't know what to think. I know that I've suggested law enforcement for my 17-year-old son as a profession, and he's like, nah. So whatever, even, the characteristics of law enforcement that they're portraying in our media and other things right now are even turning off the younger generation, and I'm sorry for that. It has the potential to be a great career. So anyway, so long story short, if you guys are getting stickers and popcorn and free bananas and hey, get your day-old donut in the break room, you guys aren't getting paid enough. And I'm will 100% advocate that you get paid more. I would certainly trade in. EMS week is coming up. We do a lot of cool things during that week, but I've always felt, and I've kind of even joked, even when I was running municipal EMS, that it's the only profession that celebrates ourselves. Like we're the people that put on the pancake breakfast at the station so the public can come in and see what we do, right? But we do it, but we clean the stations, we wax the trucks, we cook the food. We say, hey, come celebrate us, instead of a lot of celebrations have people that sponsor that for you. And I just always thought it was weird. We'll have a grad party at my house by the time this airs. That's a big deal. Our oldest is graduating high school and moving on to bigger and better things. And I'm gonna rant for a second before I get into the crux of the show, which is storytelling and public safety, and just how to be a good storyteller and why we tell stories. And at the end of it, I'm gonna hopefully share what I think is the greatest turkey hunting story ever told. And Malcolm agreed with that when he was here. It's a great story. I'm gonna tell you right here. I'm gonna die on this hill too. And it has to do with high school athletics and the information that we give to high school athletes. And I say we as in probably coaches, but it's really on us parents too. When we tell kids not to lift on game day or meet day, I think we're doing them a disservice. There's really no reason not to lift on game day or meet day, in my opinion. And there's a bunch of data to support it. However, I will certainly concede that principle if then you come back and say, but here's how you should feel your body on meet day or game day. Here's how you should get ready for the meet or the game starting the night before with a good night's sleep. So if you're a coach, if you're a high school coach and you're listening to this, I cannot stress enough how strength and conditioning is, I'm 100% in. You got 100% buy-in from this parent, right? 100%. But why, in my opinion, and I'm sure there are coaches out there that take the big picture. Why do we stop at that? And why do we not? Because nutrition and hydration is such a complex issue. I think what we say to our kids is, hey, make sure you're eating a good breakfast and you hydrate. Okay, what's that mean? We've broken down in the strength and conditioning program how to get the maximum results out of strength and conditioning. Tempo, frequency, intensity, duration, all that kind of stuff. How are we backfilling that then with the other stuff that we don't seem to talk a lot about, which is nutrition, hydration? So here it is. Night before the game, 8 hours of sleep, non-negotiable. 7 hours of sleep, non-negotiable. Put your damn phone away and get to bed. Now, it's hard to tell a teenage girl that or a teenage boy that, and I understand that. But if we're going to tell them not to lift on game day or not to lift on, my wife is so tired of hearing about this, by the way. I just kind of went off this morning. Then we got to tell them, if we're going to tell them what not to do, then we need to tell them what to do. Okay? Get to bed. You wake up the next day, we're going to hydrate right away, and we're going to put gas in the tank because we're empty. We're going to fuel for the day. If your athlete is getting up 5 minutes before they got to get to school and taking off, they're already behind. Don't come to me and go, oh, I can't understand why our production is not where it was a year ago or even at the beginning of the season or whenever it was. If you're getting up on an empty stomach and going to school and not putting gas in the tank, you're already behind. Somebody out there is going to whip your ass because they've eaten some eggs and some sourdough bread. You're going to hydrate through the day and you're going to get, a good lunch in, and then there's all kinds of resources out there. There's no excuse anymore to not be in this game of performance at a high level when it comes to nutrition, hydration, and sleep. You just can't do it. There's just too much out there. My 14-year-old understands that it's carbs before training, it's carbs before meet, it's we're going to fuel our body every day, and then it's protein after. Right? She gets it. So if you're a parent and you're struggling with trying to get these concepts to your kid, and you want to know why they're flaming out of practice when it's 85 degrees in May, and they go from track practice to softball practice, and they're just not putting out. And I just don't think kids can know how good they can feel. I don't know that they know how good they could perform if we all say, well, they're kids, they're resilient. No, those guys, Chicken Legs did it himself, jumped out of his truck and did this workout with me with very little warm up or what. And I think we take for granted that kids are kids and they're durable and they're resilient. And this is just how they are. And I'm totally against that because you could be so much better. My car can run on a certain brand of gas too. But if I want that car to run efficiently to the best of its ability, if I want to squeeze every last mile per gallon out of that car, that vehicle, I'm going to put better gas in it. And there's no other analogy I can make other than that one. So if you're struggling, and I know that kids don't listen to their parents because we don't know shit, and I understand that. I'm also real dumb. I get it. Here's two people that I follow and that I follow on Instagram that I think are valuable resources to your kid. And I think more importantly to girls, because I have 3 girls. And sometimes I think it would be real hard for some jacked dude in biceps who used to be a bodybuilder telling your kids how to eat, your girls how to eat. So these are 2 girls that I think can relate well to all athletes, but more specifically, they relate well to girl athletes, women. The first one is Kelsey Poulter. I think she was a D2 basketball player. She's a nutrition. They've all got the proper credentials. Like they're just not, yelling at you on Instagram from inside a grocery store, with you know what I mean? Like they just don't do it. Like they seem reasonable. I think they're valid. And I don't say that about a lot of influencers, but these 2 are. So Kelsey Poulter, and then the other one is Nutrition with Wendy. That's her handle on Instagram. Her name is Wendy Earbeck or something like that. And she's super nice, really good messaging, really relates to all athletes. And she tells you the hard truth. She's like, listen, if you ain't getting what you want out of your workouts, it's because you're not eating enough, or you're not eating the right stuff, or you're not getting to sleep. Or, hey, mom and dad, I hate, you're not going to want to hear this, but you got to get Timmy off the phone, by 11 o'clock at night if you want him to not hit dink ground balls to second base the next day. Like it is what it is. And I think as parents, we leave a lot on the table when we don't. Now, they have to want it too. You can't make them do things. And I understand that. Like you can put a plate full of food in front of them and they got to eat it. I get 100% behind you. They have to want it more than you. I understand it. Trust me, I'm going through it right now. But you have to be able to put that information in front of them. And I think you have to be relentless when it comes to it, to the point where they just get tired of hearing about it because it's correct information. But I think we leave a lot of gains on the table as parents when we don't push the issue when it comes to nutrition, hydration. You can lift all the weights you want, right? You can do it. But if you're not putting gas in the tank and you're not recovering the way you're supposed to, I'm going to get off this subject in a second, I promise. You're just leaving stuff on the table. If 5 minutes is good, 4:58 is better, right? And if you can get 4:58 by just simply changing a few things, timing on your meals and your sleep, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you? 2 seconds doesn't seem like a lot. Might be the difference between first in the state and second in the state. But that's on us as parents, and that's on you as the athlete. I've had my time. I myself did not have the information available to me at the time. And I look back all the time and go, man, if I would have just known more, would I had taken advantage of that time instead of just letting it happen the way it happened? Would have I invested more time and energy into that information had I had it available to me? One last thing, creatine. Everybody should be taking creatine. Boys, girls, adults, kids, everyone. That's all I'm going to say about that. That's the hill I'm going to die on today. And maybe every episode, maybe I'll just introduce a new hill that I'm willing to die on. And trust me, it's a very hilly terrain. There's a lot of those hills I'd be happy to die on. Let's talk about storytelling in EMS and why we tell stories and what makes you a good storyteller. Now, one of my favorite things to do at the shift change is listen to people's stories from the previous shift. And there's people that just tell a really, really good story, and then there's people that don't tell a really, really good story. But either way, each version is valid. And I think the things that make you a good storyteller, first of all, why do we tell stories? Well, there's a lot of different reasons, right? We tell stories to pass on information. We tell stories to learn lessons. We tell stories to preserve information. Think about all the stories you've heard from your parents and your grandparents about the good old days. Or I used to walk uphill both ways to school, or we used to walk all over this great nation. Like, we preserve history when it comes to storytelling, right? I think in EMS and public safety in general, one of the things that makes stories so good is that we have a pretty good plot. Like, it's a pretty interesting thing that we get to see sometimes. Without violating HIPAA, we can tell some pretty cool stories. Sometimes it's about, they have good outcomes. Most of our stories have good outcomes. Sometimes they don't. But either way, there's so much material out there to tell us to get stories from. I can't tell you a lot of stories unless I've been, I wouldn't say triggered. I would say, like, unless my memory is triggered by a certain story. Like, I can't just make up a story out of the thin air and then tell a good story. It usually has to be in some sort of context. But anyway, we have a lot of material. Firefighter, police, dispatchers, we all have stories. And sometimes those stories are at somebody else's expense, right? Like, we're going to tell a story about somebody who learned a real hard lesson. Sometimes we're going to tell stories because we kind of want to, badger our buddy a little bit about something they did. I think a lot of times in EMS, and I'm pretty sure this was one of in episode, whatever it was, when I talked about toxic traits in EMS, sometimes we tell stories just to make ourselves look good, which is a red flag. And we all know those people that anytime they tell a story, they're going to look like the hero in it. And I think sometimes what makes a good storyteller is you're willing to tell stories about yourself that doesn't make you look all that great, or doesn't shed that bright light on you a little bit. And those are the stories I like to hear when people have learned for things. I have never learned anything from getting an airway, but I've learned everything about airway management from failing at an airway. And those I think are the stories that people really want to hear. We have a lot of cool characters in our stories. That makes it fun. I mean, people never cease to supply you with stories. We've said this for generations, that somebody should write a book. Your triage nurse at your hospital should write a book about all the things that people have come in and complained of and presented. It would be a good read. And I hope if there are books out there like that, I'd like to read them, because there's one of the things I tried to get my grandpa to do when he was in his older age was to record himself telling stories of when he grew up, so that we could preserve for my kids something about that generation. He never did it, of course, which is too bad. So all we have to go off of is the stories that he told me, and the versions of the stories change over time, right? And I think one of the things we do as individuals is if we have to fill in details, and sometimes we make some shit up, right? Like, maybe that story didn't happen exactly the way I told it, but in order to fill the gaps, I had to kind of fill in some details there, and which is fine. It makes that story more intriguing. Our themes are usually meaningful. Like, we have a central idea or a message, and I think we in public safety really enjoy each other's stories because we can relate to them. I don't know if you've ever heard your teacher spouse tell you a story about something that happened at their teaching job, but I don't know how to react to those stories. I don't know how to, and I think obviously my job in that situation is just to shut up and listen. I understand that. But then you listen to somebody like in your profession, if she were to listen to somebody else in her profession tell that same story, she could offer things and anecdotes and insights, and they can engage in each other, and they can really have an interactive story. We do the same thing in EMS. So you take an EMS provider or a public safety person outside of EMS or public safety, and you put them in a group with some other profession, probably not going to say a whole lot. You're probably not going to get a whole lot of conversation out of them. Somebody might even ask you to share a story, and you'd be like, this one time, this tractor landed on somebody and cut their leg off, and we took them to the hospital. Might be the only details you get. You put somebody in a group full of public safety people, and the stories just fly, right? Just fly off the shelves, these stories, because we relate to each other, and I think that's obviously a common thread is we tell stories in a way that people will understand in our profession. There's usually a good hook in our story, right? Like people are waiting for that aha. Here's basically the climax of the plot right here is, and that usually has to do with what had happened to somebody and then the outcome. Just like the old cliffhanger on the sitcom or on the TV, right before you cut to commercial. That's the hook. Is now, okay, I don't want to get up and refill my popcorn because I want to see what happens. And there's always usually some sort of resolution at the end. Everybody wins, hopefully, in the good stories. I know that on TV, there's always a happy ending, and in life, there's not. But there's usually something, some lesson learned or something that we can come out of a story. What makes you a good storyteller? Number one, you got to really enjoy telling the story, right? Enthusiasm, passion. You just got to sell it. You got to be able to talk. You got to use nice words and good English. You have to be, gooder than the next person in telling good stories. I think that you should change the pitch of your voice. I think a good story has some highs and lows. If you're a monotone talker and you're telling a story in the same level voice, I think your story sucks. I'll sit there and listen, but I'm not going to be engaged. If you see people like distracted and their eyes are moving from your story and stuff like that, you probably lost them. But the people that are really engaged in your story and are really focused on how you're telling the story, that's how you know you got them hooked. I think that a lot of our stories, when we share stories, you can't, like, you've heard the phrase, you can't make this shit up. Because people who don't do our job sit there and go, you're kidding me, right? Like, that really happened? That's something that happened. They go to their office all day, or even more so now, the old work from home people. I don't know what kind of stories they can share, but man, if I worked from home Monday through Friday, I don't know that I would have anything to share with anybody. Stories. You want to hear a funny story about my job today where I didn't leave my house? Not really. Doesn't sound cool. But if you're a work from home person, thanks for doing what you do. The creativity part, that's the ability to kind of fill in some blanks. I'm going to tell you a story here in a second that happened over 10 years ago. And I promise you everything about this story is authentic. But man, over time, memories fade, and you got to fill that gap in with some funny stuff. Timing is everything. Know your audience. Be a good listener to other people's stories, and that will teach you how to tell stories. And if you're not a good storyteller and you want to be, just start telling stories, man. Just start practicing. And there's nobody that doesn't like a good story. I do. If you look back at all the beginning episodes that I published, they were all about somebody's story, because I'm interested in your story. I want to know how you got here, how you're doing the thing that you're doing. I want to know what happened to you, right? This is Clint's story. Clint's story about how he got to be a paramedic is a good story. It's because he had a heart attack. I want to hear about you and how you did things. And it's interesting. And he tells the story in an interesting way that you just want to sit and listen to, right? I want as many of those stories in my life as I can get, because it makes you, number one, I think it makes you grateful sometimes for, man, I didn't know you had it so hard, man. I have a new appreciation. Or, everybody's got a story. I've always said this, everybody's got a story. And not two stories are the same. And then, if you want to tell a story, you got to be one to kind of put yourself out there and open yourself to, well, why'd you do it that way? Right. There's always going to be critics. There's always going to be, people that are going to think, your stories would have been better had you done it their way. And that's fine. But don't let that stop you from trying to tell a good story. All right, I'm going to tell you now the greatest turkey hunting story ever told, in my opinion. And this is with Malcolm and I, and this is about Malcolm's first turkey. Okay? and then I'm going to wrap it up after that because we're on 35 minutes. I've been on a lot of hills today. So when Malcolm first started hunting, he got into hunting, I assume, because Sheena's dad was a big hunter. And like anything else Malcolm did, he poured himself into whatever he was going to, hobby he was going to participate in. So he read all the articles. He did, here's top 10 ways to kill a turkey. He spent a lot of time researching it. He spent a lot of time doing things. He bought the turkey vests and he bought the turkey calls and he practiced sounding like a turkey and did all the things that he was supposed to do. Well, and I don't remember at the time, this story is over 10 years old for sure. If he really had anywhere to turkey hunt, I think he did, but it doesn't matter. I had a farm south of Winterset that I was hunting. It was 180 acres. Okay. So keep that in mind. That piece of information is going to play out later. South of Winterset. And I rarely killed a turkey on that place because I was just not a very good turkey hunter. I was not a very patient turkey hunter. I loved hearing the turkeys gobble, but once they stopped gobbling, I figured, well, my turkey hunting was over. And so I was usually fishing by, 7:30 in the morning. But anyway, this particular day, I was sitting in my turkey blind and I had two birds gobbling and I knew Malcolm was coming off his shift. And so for those of you that don't turkey hunt, turkey daylight during turkey season comes very, very early. So for example, this week I've been getting up at 3:30. I have to be in the woods by 5. They start gobbling a little after 5. And then usually by 5:30, 5:45, the turkeys pitch down from their trees and they're out doing turkey stuff. Okay. So I like to be in there when that happens. And so I'd already been in the turkey blind since probably about 5:30. I knew Malcolm was coming off shift. He doesn't get off duty really until 7 technically, but typically our relief is there by 6:30, 6:45. And so I'd already been listening to turkeys gobble for 45 minutes or so. And so I text Malcolm and I said, hey man, I got 2 birds gobbling. Do you want to come down here and try to kill one? And this was a long time ago over text messages, and I think it might have been T9 texting. And I remember he wrote back, he's like, yes, I would love to. Is it okay with the landowner? And so I texted the landowner. I said, hey, any problems with Malcolm coming down and trying to kill one of these turkeys? And he texted me. He's like, no, not at all. Have at it. And so I text Malcolm. I have no idea what time I text Malcolm. Let's say it was 6 o'clock in the morning. Hey, man, it's all good. Park at the south gate. He knew where that was because I think he'd already killed a deer on this property, and I don't know this for a fact. My timing might be a little off. Park at the south gate, walk down to the pond. You'll hear the turkey gobble and go do your thing. And so I'm sitting in a turkey blind at the bottom of a hill, probably a quarter mile from where I told him to park. Well, from the time I sent him that text message to the time I thought I heard what sounded like a choking chicken and a terrible rendition of a hen turkey call, couldn't have been more than 20 minutes. So this guy somehow found his relief, got the relief to come in early, and drove 100 miles an hour down to this turkey hunting farm and had enough time to walk in, mind you, too close to where I was hunting because I could hear him yelping, and which is not his fault. He had no idea where he was, really. He didn't really know the farm 100%, right? Doesn't matter. Couldn't have been more than 30. Couldn't have been more than 30 minutes. From the time I sent him that message to the time he was down clucking like a chicken or a turkey. So anyway, we're sitting there and our other buddies kind of texting me like, hey, how's the turkey hunting going? I was like, it's pretty slow. Malcolm's down here. He sounds terrible, by the way. I don't know how that guy will ever kill a turkey because he sounds sick, and just banging on him a little bit, right? And then all of a sudden, I'm sitting in my turkey blind and I hear kaboom. And I went, holy crap. The guy shot at a turkey. And I was like, man, this is awesome. So I'm sitting in my turkey blind and I text our buddy and I say, hey, he just shot. I don't know if he shot a turkey or his gun just went off, but either way, stand by for further. And so all of a sudden I look out of my turkey blind And this big, beautiful tom turkey is flying down the hill, soaring with his wings open. And he lands. And so I was like, holy crap, he must have bumped a turkey my way. So we're going to double up. This is going to be great. And so I get my gun up and I get pointed out the blind, and the turkey lands literally 10 yards in front of me and then walks into the tree line, and I can hear it start flopping around. And then all of a sudden, dead silence. And I'm like, what in God's name just happened? And I sat there for a few minutes and I went, this, and typically you don't, like, when you're turkey hunting, get up and investigate things because it's just a bad idea. Turkeys are going to take off if you don't know the turkeys are there. And so I kind of sat there for a few minutes and I was like, what just happened to this turkey? I got to know. So I got out of my turkey blind and I walked into the tree line, and there was a turkey piled up dead. And I'm like, holy crap, Malcolm killed this turkey. So I went back to my turkey line. I left the turkey where it lay. I went back to my turkey blind and I texted him, and I just texted him the word "well?" ? And he wrote back, I missed. And I went, oh, this is great. Only because of what I was planning, not because he felt like he missed a turkey. And I can just picture Malcolm sitting there with his back against a tree, just seething, just red-faced, just seething that he had probably worked really hard. And knowing Malcolm and the way he turkey hunts, which is why, by the way, I turkey hunt the way I do now, is because he convinced me that way is way more fun. You screw up a lot more turkey hunts that way, but it's way more fun than sitting in a turkey blind, waiting for a turkey to show up. I can just see him seething right now that he missed a turkey, a chance at a turkey. They don't come very often unless you're on YouTube. It would have been his first one. I can see it on his face. And so in the meantime, my buddy texts us back and goes, hey, how's the turkey hunting going? And I said, man, this is going great. It couldn't go better. Courtner just shot a turkey, but he thinks he missed it. So I'm going to fire off a round at this tree, and then I'm going to send him a text message that says, hey, come take a picture of me and my turkey. As a joke, right? And just play it up and be like, listen, man, like fan him out and do all the super, super dickhead turkey pictures and do all that kind of stuff. And I thought it was a great. And my buddy on the other end of the text message was, you know, whatever hysterical laughing you could do back then with T9. Maybe it was just LOL or whatever, but great plan. Well, listen, I sat there for a few minutes and the woods was dead quiet, just dead still, just dead quiet. And I pictured my buddy sitting there just pissed off. And finally, I sent him a text message and I said, hey, man, come down here and take a picture of your turkey. And within seconds, I have no idea where he was sitting at that time, but I can tell you within seconds, down that same hill that turkey flew was 6'2" Malcolm Courtner, just flailing his arms, shotgun in his hand, turkey vest bouncing, exclaiming to the world that he has never laid his hands on a wild turkey and that he was going to get to in this moment. And when I showed him where his turkey laid, I, to this day, maybe with the exception of my wife when our kids were born, maybe when my son killed his first turkey, have found it very hard to find the joy on that guy's face like I saw that day. It was awesome. Now, we stood there for a long time, looking at that turkey, talking about that turkey. And for whatever reason, I don't think to this day there was ever a picture taken of that turkey. I don't know that we had the capability, to be honest with you. Or we were so consumed by the moment that we just didn't take pictures of it. Maybe we just didn't get to it. But I can tell you that was that day, and I don't know how old I was at the time. But it was the day I learned to be happy for other people. And I don't know that I spent a lot of my life understanding how to do that. But that day taught me how to find joy in other people's success, how to find joy in other people's happy ending, and not look outward and say, well, why couldn't that have been me? Must be nice. Self-deprecating. Why does Malcolm get to kill a turkey on the turkey hunting farm that I gave him permission to hunt? Well, what did I expect him to do? I wanted him to come down here and kill a damn turkey. And he did it. that was the day that I look back and say, it's not about me. This is what it feels like to give. And it feels good. That, in my opinion, is the greatest turkey hunting story ever told. You guys want me to share your turkey hunting stories, man? I would love to listen to them. I hope that you are all out there shooting turkeys in the face. It is the most fun a guy can have, in my opinion. And it was awesome. I miss that guy. After I killed my turkey this year, I was like, man, I'd really like to call Malcolm and tell him the story. But I do one better. His son, Samuel, called me. He's 7. Hey, Jason, tell me a story about you killing that turkey. And it was awesome. I needed that. Samuel also killed a turkey. And if you've ever heard a story, if you've ever heard a 7-year-old tell you how they killed a turkey, it's pretty awesome. Like, that kid was pure joy about how he shot that turkey right in the neck. That's all I got for today. I'm starting to get weird about it, so it's time to go. Somebody tried to call me in the middle of this episode again. I might have to splice the two together. Stay till the end. It was worth it. It was awesome. If you guys got any ideas for shows, hit me up. Until next time, work hard, be kind. Bye.
Hey guys, thanks again for listening to another episode of the Shift Change Podcast. I need to ask if you would leave a rating. I think that it helps people who are new to the podcast find it quicker. It doesn't do me any good, but it does help other people that are looking for the Shift Change Podcast on Spotify or Apple. It just comes up quicker the more ratings that you give it. Whether you give it a 2 or a 5, it doesn't make a difference. It just helps other people. If you need to get a hold of me, contact me via my email, the show email, which is talkshiftchange@gmail.com. Or you can message me on Instagram at talk.shiftchange. Excuse me, at talk.shiftchange on Instagram. As always, thanks for listening. I could not have imagined how well this podcast has been received. So, as always, I appreciate it. Work hard, be kind.